Good morning, everybody. Are we good? Good morning, everybody. You all right? How's everybody feeling this morning? Any sore heads? Just me? I felt better, but thank you for asking, Sandra. To those of you who are here for today that weren't here yesterday, welcome and thank you very much for coming along. And for those of you who are here for both days, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for joining us last night as well. It was brilliant. I had a great time. I hope everyone else really enjoyed it. Thank you for staying out. Thank you for participating. And thank you to, who was the Peter? And well done to, I think it was Peter that won the gambling. Is he around? Paul. Was it Paul?
I think he's had to leave, unfortunately.
He's had to leave. Okay. Again, just general housekeeping rules. No fire alarms expected again today. Toilets, for those who aren't aware, are just out here on the left and right. There's also ones by the restaurant and some more as you walk down towards the main product showcase. Teas and coffees will be served down where the showcase is at the relevant breaks. There's a lunch today from 1:15, which again will be served in and around the restaurant. So please join us for some lunch before everyone travels off home. In terms of the programme today, we won't spend too much time going through this, but just to let you know that the sessions that are noted to run in Acorn 2 are actually going to be held in here instead today. So just to give a bit more space. So if anyone was planning to go to Acorn 2, please come in here instead. Again, like we did yesterday, for those who have still got your tickets, there's a couple more prizes left to win. So, Matt, if we can do a draw. So for those who weren't here yesterday, in the back of your pass you should have a raffle ticket number, and if your ticket is drawn out, then Matt's going to bring over an envelope with a voucher inside it. So we've got number 2 to begin with. Nobody. Number 65. That's going to take a long time, isn't it? What numbers do people want? 39. We might start doing the closest one. 39, we've got one. Fantastic. Number 70. Oh, cool. Fantastic. Okay. 150. Might start doing it. If you're within 10, you can have it. 174. Fantastic. Hey. 199. Here we are. How many do we have left, Matt? Okay, so we've got number 18. Nobody? 194. Oh, this is not going to plan. Number 5. Are we even close? 19. Shh. They weren't here. 58.
Yes.
Fantastic. And number 76. Yeah. Okay, one left? No. There we go. 151. $59. Keep going. I think that's one of the ones. 148.
Attention.
157. Ah, well done, Ricardo. So with us today as well, we have Iris back here again today, who are down, and we also have our other distributor, Adam Rooley. I haven't actually had time to speak to Adam Rooley yet, but they've also donated another £100 cash prize. I need to go and make sure they've actually got it before we do that, so I'm going to pass it over to Jeff, and maybe we'll do that at the end of the keynote. So stick around, there's one more prize to go. I'm going to hand you over anyway now to Jeff Evans. Cheers, Jeff.
Hey, so I hope everybody had a great night last night. I thought it was a lot of fun. A few shenanigans. I learned a few phrases that I will not repeat today, but had an absolute blast. It was great getting to know a few of you a little bit more. So I do want to take just a moment and do a couple of thank yous. So Tom Martin, Tom Sharp put a ton of time into this in regards to organization and getting all the mannequins and everything set up for us. I know Wolfgang, Jamie, I'll miss a few people, so I apologize, but just a huge thank you to the entire CAE team for putting this on. Record attendance in the 16, 17 years that we've been doing this, so I appreciate everybody coming out. We're committed to you all, so we'll continue to do this. We look forward to seeing you next year as well. I know we'll get more information on where and when and all that good stuff as the months come up as we get into 24. But big thank you to all the presenters as well. I heard nothing but great things about the individual breakout sessions, the keynote speaker, and looking forward, obviously, to today as well. So just a huge thank you to everybody that put their time into it. With that, I guess we'll kick it over to Stefan to go ahead and introduce the keynote. There are a few people that showed up today, couldn't make yesterday. Myself, the rest of the CAE leadership team will be around if there's feedback or anything else that we can continue to do to help what you're doing on a regular basis, which means a ton for healthcare and what you're doing in healthcare simulation. We'll make ourselves available at any time. Please come find us. If I don't see you, have the happiest of holidays. Enjoy it, relax with friends and family, and look forward to seeing you all soon, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce Professor Joanne Davies. And before I go into the details, I just shared with her that yesterday I had a lot of people approaching me about this presentation, so no pressure at all, saying they're curious to hear that. Jo is currently head of simulation at Swansea University. She has held clinical and educational leadership roles. And she is thinking about education and training as a way to address system changes. And I think that rings a bell with a lot of us, and that makes it quite relevant. And I think the official CV remarks aside, yesterday we had a personal conversation which I really enjoyed. It was fantastic, and I just want to quote a few things that I took away from that. No, don't worry, nothing bad about this. But we sort of, I think, agreed on some things that may sound obvious, but they aren't apparently. So she favors some needs assessment exercises before training media specification, the decision making, which may sound a little bit familiar to those of you who listened to yesterday's keynote. And I think education, what I heard from you, education needs to fit into the busy clinical schedules, the constraints that all our healthcare system faces. There's a need to close the loop between the assessment of performance of maybe individuals, but also of those systems and the curriculum, the education and training. There's a clear need for data analytics for learners, for facilitators, for clinics as well. So each of these were at least important for me, and I think it's pointing the way. It closes the loop from education and training, from nice to have, something that happens in an ivory tower or after hours by some enthusiasts, or towards a solution that addresses the problems that we see in healthcare, and I think that's absolutely irrelevant. So please help me welcome Joanne Davies, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
so much, Stefan. I hope the people that were asking about this presentation, actually, that was before they had the cocktail night, not after. But it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much to the CAE team for a great conference and also for the invitation. So I'd like to speak to you for around an hour about our journey at Swansea University, converting our 1980s building into a state-of-the-art simulation centre and programme. So the aim of the session is to walk through that journey, to describe some of the key steps, but to mainly talk about key principles, because whether you're building a huge facility and programme or whether you're expanding simulation in your curriculums or in your hospitals, in your universities, some of these key discussions, I hope, still ring true. Just a little bit of a disclaimer there that I'm here representing Swansea University and I have no conflicts of interest. No offence, CAE. So the mission that I chose to accept was to expand simulation-based education for Swansea University. So that's a very large organisation. And some of the steps to do that, it sounds like a grand statement, let's expand simulation education. But there's key things we have to consider before we can do that. And some of the considerations sometimes is timing, isn't it? It's good timing. So how many of you in this audience are trying to expand or increase your simulation-based education within your facilities? Wow, yeah, so many of the room is trying to do this. And for us, I should really have said good morning, welcome, bore da, because we're from Wales. So sorry to my Welsh colleagues. But for us, it was good timing because our equivalent to HEE, HNIW, Health Education Improvement Wales, really are setting a mandate to increase not only simulation-based education, but interprofessional learning. And we know sim education has a direct correlation, doesn't it, to improving interprofessional learning. So it was great timing for us because the university approached me because of that mandate from the government. Absolute key, whether you're doing a very large programme or just expanding simulation step by step, is doing that initial needs assessment. And thank you, Stefan, for mentioning that in our conversation. We talked a lot about the need to do a needs assessment and what we call a SWOT analysis. So where are you at the moment? What's happening within your organisation? SWOT analysis, for people that aren't sort of familiar with that, is that strengths. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are some of the opportunities? And then what are some of the threats? What are the things you need to consider when you're planning? So I don't know if Emily's here today, but Emily spoke passionately yesterday about using the right technology at the right time. And that's key, but you need to have your foundations, don't you, in place. It might be state the obvious, but leadership buy-in is so important. I see so many programs where you're working really hard as individuals, you're trying simulation, you're being brave, you know the need, you think this is important to me and my organisation. But the support from leadership is key. And one of the things I would highly recommend, can I just get a show of hands who would class themselves as new to sim or maybe novice to sim in the room? So a few people in the room are quite novice to simulation. Really gain some expertise, really approach expertise, and plan it into your simulation expansion. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean go out and get expensive consultants, although that may work as a strategy if it saves expensive errors in the end, if your program is quite large. But there are our simulation communities, our societies, different centres that are at different places in their program, and also our industry colleagues that can reach out and help to just guide you to put those initial steps together. I can't emphasise that enough, because if you don't do that, it can cost you later in time, resource, and maybe making decisions that you need to move back a few steps and start again. Ensuring that you have a clear vision and strategy. So here in this room, how many people can say they have a clear SIM strategy within their organisation that they know of? 3. Yeah? Yet, we spoke yesterday about how expensive it is to do that, how the need is so great with our patient safety issues, with the increase in student numbers. So people will come up to me and say, Jo, it's great news. We've got an increase in our student numbers. We're going to have another 160 medical students joining us. And I'm thinking, oh, yay. I'm thinking, yay, for the future, but oh, my goodness. So making sure that you have a clear vision, mission, and strategy. I know there's some really experienced SIM people in the room. I can see Mandy there, Mandy Wilford. Having a clear strategy, Mandy, saves you tenfold, doesn't it? Because you can stick to that vision and mission. You think this is what... So it may be that you've got a smaller programme and you're thinking about your central teams. It may be that you're doing a big programme, like the one I've just done, but that strategic direction was key. Only when you have your clear mission, vision, and strategic direction can you then start thinking about more of the details, because this guides your project planning and the need for the big budget. So either you're given a budget or you ask for one, which is harder. But you need to have the right information in place to make sure that that budget is accurate for your vision and mission. So part of that really is to think about what do you want to do within your programme, that inclusive design principles. What do we need to include? What are some of our priorities? We have to think about sustainability and resource utilisation, and that is multifaceted, isn't it? If you're building a SIM centre or you're expanding your facilities, is anyone in the room expanding facilities? Yes. Oh, we've got a few. Oh, wow. That's good. So there is some budget somewhere. A little bit, maybe. So there's great. So there's real budget. There's real expansion and facilities growth, which is fantastic. But you may think about sustainability in a few ways. People that aren't expanding facilities might think about programme sustainability. And Emily spoke a little bit about this yesterday, didn't she? You buy a mannequin, but then you forget the skins cost a lot of money. Suddenly you've got a nice big bill at the end of the year for warranties. Have you got a technologist? Have you got permanent staff? You might be thinking with that hat on for sustainability. But we also need as facilitators, leaders in facilities, we need to think about environmental sustainability. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that, because that was part of our planning. I cannot emphasise not only that needs assessment, but the collaborative approach. So reaching out when you're given this mission or vision to expand simulation, have you reached out and spoken to your key stakeholders, and also stakeholders that you might not think are the primary stakeholders that you might have to consider? Because we know with any change management, there's a curve, isn't it? You've got your early adopters, which you guys are. You're the SIM early adopters. You're the SIM champions wanting to drive your programs. You have the majority. You have your late adopters. And then you have people that will never come on board no matter what you do. Even if you give them a box of chocolates, they won't. But concentrate on these people, because bringing these core people along with you means that you guys won't be the single point of failure. You won't have an organisation where you've only got a couple of people doing sim, you're doing great work, when you need a lot more people doing simulation. Does that sort of make sense? Yeah, great. Think about your plan. So when you're thinking about your project plans, and for the people designing facilities, I'm sure you're really talking about project plans and stages and commissioning and all the buzzwords of project planning. But think about it in a short, medium and long term. We often jump in. I know the first programmes I did many years ago, I was in Abu Dhabi actually, and I'm a midwife by trade, a labour ward midwife, so I was running around busily doing simulations and making it up as I went along, etc., etc. But we jumped in, started simulations, and we found it hard to sustain because there was just a couple of us championing it. Once we left, there was nothing remaining for the teams. So even though we need to think about the short term, we also plan for the mid and long term as well. And align and underpin your programmes to accreditation standards. So for people that put their hand up to say they're expanding their simulation programmes, how many of you are actually underpinning it with the ASPE or SSIH standards? Yeah? That should have won the raffle. Yay. Because don't forget, most people with accreditation will just think about the certificate at the end and they try and retrofit. So we build programmes and then we start to think about accreditation. If you underpin it into everything you do, even if you decide, I'm not going to get the certificate, I'm not going to go for SSIH, we can't afford, I'm not going to pursue ASPE accreditation, you've built a programme based on quality. And that's the point, isn't it? Accreditation is all about embedding quality into your programmes. So the ASPE standards have just been updated. They're really good. They've got great core values. So that's a great piece of work for you to have a look at. I've just talked a little bit about the alignment standards. I always do this. I say everything on the first slide, so forgive me. I'm definitely a sim person, not a PowerPoint person. But I think the key, the absolute key for us was to broaden our ability to support learners. So our mission and vision, having that mission and vision, that we actually aligned with our university mission and vision, because obviously it's about education and research and academia, but we also adopted some of our ASPE standards. Again, there's lots of examples of these different mission and vision statements and strategic plans. If anyone would like any information or advice on that, please get in touch. But our core aim was this, broadening our ability to support learners through simulation-based education in whatever format that may be. So there's lots of modalities, isn't there, of simulation. We wanted to broaden that. But this, to me, is absolutely key. It is driven by pedagogy. It's driven by excellence in education, simulation standards and research. If you can get this bit right, the rest will come. Doing this plus getting a good team around you. So we know core simulation specialists, champions in healthcare, simulation technologists, and trained faculty, and then you enhance your programmes with technology. Get this bit right, and this will come. You'll use the right technology for the right modality of education, and then you will help support that resource and sustainability. For people doing simulation currently, do you have faculty development programmes within your centres and universities? Yeah? Some people, a few people maybe? Good. It's good to hear. So when you're thinking about your strategy and your strategic themes, you obviously have to frame that around what your mission and vision is. Our mission and vision was quite broad because we are looking at several types of learners coming into our centre and programmes, but we have different themes, pillars, some people have pillars, whatever you decide to do. The point is that you consider several factors when putting together a strategic plan. Any strategic plan for sim I've ever written has always said faculty first, people first, simulation technologists. I didn't make these up. Again, they're from ASPE, they're from SSIH. All this information is available. You don't have to sort of worry too much. However, you have to contextualise it for your own institution and your own organisation and what you're trying to achieve. So each of these different themes means something slightly different to different organisations, but the principles are the same. You still need to think about your people, your core activities, how you evaluate and collect data. We talked about leadership buy-in. You need data to push up to leadership and discuss your outcomes and your impacts to be able to grow or sustain your programs. It's a must. You also think about your operations and your sustainability. Do you have simulation operations manuals? How many people in the group have a really robust operations manual with all your sim policies and procedures in place? Anyone? If anyone does, can I have it? Because I'm just rewriting policies and procedures. It's the worst job ever. But maybe as a community, we need to think about that. Let's start working with I think we have representation here from ASPE and HNIW. Let's start thinking about why are we all reinventing the wheel and doing the same thing? Why don't we have some of these things available that you can just modify for your own organisation? So there's a project for someone. If anyone wants to do a PhD at Swansea University, I can recruit you. I'll talk a little bit more about research, but I added a couple of themes around research and collaboration because this is so important for either smaller projects or larger projects, whichever one you're doing. But advancing simulation, researching what you're doing, collecting that data is absolutely essential, and also forming those strong collaborations. And it's amazing what these collaborations lead to. They can support your programs, or you can help support other programs. You can work together, we all learn from each other. Different centres and different organisations have amazing ideas, and it's all advancing simulation for the good of our patients and for our learners and our students. So collaboration is key, and I don't have to tell this audience because that's what you're doing here, isn't it? So we did a lot of that upfront work. We did thorough needs assessments. We had our vision, mission, strategic planning. It helped to inform our budgets, and that's why expertise is needed, because you want to make sure you budget well for your short, medium and long term. If you only think about the short term, you might have a shocker in year 5 when you run out of pennies, unless you've got a good business model. So we decided at Swansea University for our scope, which was really our core learners, working with a health board, so we do postgraduate training, and also working with communities and industry, so our scope is quite large and our numbers of learners are large, that we would design a simulation centre, a core simulation centre. We also have a facility redesign in Carmarthenshire, which is about an hour and a half. It's a remote campus, and that's an education space. It's actually a listed building. It's an old mental health building, and when I went in I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to get simulation in here, but we've done it. We've got 3 immersive suites, so that was a good job done. I'm not sure the council quite understood what we were doing, but they agreed to it in the end. And then we've also got another space at Pentra Owl, which I'm not going to talk about because that's less sim, it's more education, so I'll skip that one. Okay, so we now have a plan of action. We're going to build a sim centre or increase our facilities, expand our facilities. So now we start thinking about our design. How do we design these spaces? Some of the key design features, we go back again to what is it that you're going to be doing in these facilities? What is your key mission and vision? So you go back to your stakeholders. Make sure it's a continuous conversation so they feel involved. Still embedding those educational standards and processes, so think about your design for your facilities and your flow. Think about the different user flows, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute because I'll show you how we considered the student journey, the facilitator journey, and the technical journey. So I'll talk to you when I show you the schematics. We talk about flexible space and future-proofing, and hopefully you'll see that because I'm going to take you on a wee little tour of the centre. But this is absolutely key to make sure that you can accommodate multiple modalities of education in these facilities. We can't always rely that every day, every week simulation will be done. So you might have to use it for other things, but you want to make sure you can accommodate lots of different types of sim that might need to run in there, or lots of different types of programs, sorry. We decided on an immersive learning approach, so I'm sure it's becoming more common. I don't know if you're aware of the immersive learning walls. I think Emily spoke about them yesterday, but you'll see some examples of those today. But that was really important for us because we have such a wide variety of students and we have high turnovers. So I've mainly worked in postgraduate in hospitals running and operating simulation, but for undergrads, there's a lot of students, isn't there? Suddenly you have 3,000 students and you think, how am I going to get those through 8 rooms? So you really have to think about your operating model. You really have to think about your capacity management, and that helps with your design. Does that make sense? Yeah, great. From there, we think about that sustainability, which we mentioned before. But another key question in your design is, are you going to be building spaces and centres where you've also got a return on investment? And return on investment as well is multifaceted. It's not all just about working with business. It's about return on investment with things like faculty. So we're trying to do more research, say, in VR, because we're thinking about, does that reduce some of the faculty's time? These are sort of the research projects that we're looking to progress with. So when you're starting to think about your design, you then go through different considerations with your end users. How inclusive are we being? Have we thought about our different types of learners? Wendy spoke about this in your session yesterday, Wendy, about different types of learners and the considerations you need, accessibility, innovation, and really inspiring them to learn is another good thing, isn't it? Do these immersive walls, do these sim centres inspire the learners? So we think about different features. The other thing we had to consider is your local context. So we can think very broadly about these principles of design, but there is many areas and facilities that need to think about some local context and some specificity of your programs. For us, it's very much about Welsh language. So we have a Welsh language agenda. So our systems that we procure have to support that, and our faculty. And then explore potential one step at a time, but always keep that big picture in mind. Because the joy of collaboration is hopefully you come out with a great product, but the pain of collaboration is you get lots of ideas and lots of people wanting to do things very specifically for their programme. So we had a very interesting conversation with the team for nuclear medicine, and they wanted a brilliant sim room. It was amazing what they were doing with augmented reality, but it was for 3 days training for a very specific course for a very specific time. So we negotiated different space for that programme, because if we'd have put it in the sim centre, which actually I would have loved to because it was really cool, but it wouldn't have been a good use of our flexible space and time. So you have to sort of prioritise, and that's part of your design and strategy, and that negotiation of what needs to go where. We also thought about our platforms and our other systems to support faculty and the organisation, a little bit of that return on investment, invest in some systems to hopefully save time and energy and money for our faculty, but also to standardise the quality of our curriculum, which is the most important part of this. This is the early stuff, isn't it? Get your curriculum right. So we invested in Iris so that we could do faculty development on scenario by design. We could make sure we had a centralised pool of curriculum. We could share it and also make use of the 1,000 scenarios that are already in there, and that we can just simply modify or convert into Welsh and get up and running quickly with our simulation programs. So we're going back to the future, as we said. We're going back to the future, and when we'd thought about all of these features, the thing I recommended for Swansea was what we call the hub and spoke model. So because at the time we'd just merged as a faculty, so we're now the Faculty of Medicine, Health and Life Sciences, their simulation was highly dispersed. And how many people in this room have an organisation where there's pockets of sim going on all over the place? Is there a clear idea of what's going on? No. So there's lots of duplication. Does that ring true? Lots of duplication, lots of waste maybe, lots of lack of efficiency in your models. So because our volumes were going to be large, so thousands of learners, I recommended a hub and spoke model where we centralise some of the mid to higher tech equipment in a building. I started 2.5 years ago at Swansea, and the introduction was, can I have your building and can you move out your offices? So I'm not sure it went down particularly well, but I tried to fight the fight with a good cause and said patient safety about 420 times in the meeting. I just blame the patients. I tried to have like a real mission. But we were converting this 1980s building, late 1980s building, into a simulation centre, thinking about all those design features we just thought about. However, in the spokes, because in a university we have lots of education space, don't we? Lots of classrooms, lots of auditoriums, all that sort of stuff. We didn't want sim to just be centralised in one spot. We wanted to make sure that things like the clinical skills training, some of the formative practices for OSCEs, etc., was still done in the spoke. But in the hub, we'd have more of that mastery and applied simulation. So that really, the simulation that you do that needs high facilitation. In the spoke, we have agile technologies, so the support for faculty to set up those clinical skills. Within the hub, our main sim centre, we have simulation technologists and an operations manager and an education manager, because I would say one of the key things, especially for, I notice a few hands up over this way, expanding your programme, is go armed with your org chart. Because even though you'll be using faculty and clinical experts, you need a core sim team. You need a team to help mentor and grow your programs at scale. So your org chart is key. And if anyone wants an org chart, I've got several, because I'm always asking for people. So if anyone wants to have a look at one for sim, you're more than welcome. So this is our 1980s building. I'm going to do a little bit of a virtual tour in a minute, but I just wanted to show you an example of the design, the schematic. So it was 2 floors, as you could see, in our Wacker 80s building, and doing a retrofit is a lot harder than doing a new build. New builds are lovely, aren't they? It's like a house. I want my kitchen here. I want my bathroom here, but we had limitations, and we had a set budget. So we'd asked for an amount, and we had our budget. So these spaces around the centre, around the edge, were all offices, so small offices. So if you can see here, you go through the front doors, and there are 4 zones of learning: 2 on the bottom floor, on the ground floor, 2 on the top floor. It's what we call a front of house, back of house design. It's like a theatre. We're a bit dramatic in simulation, aren't we? So design it like a theatre. The learners come in, they've got lovely changing rooms. They come in their civvies and get changed into their uniforms. It helps to promote that professionalism and immersion in the simulations. Let's take this seriously. They're asked to leave their phones in their lockers, which has been the biggest challenge of this project. Partying and getting rid of the phones. And then the learners would come into their designated zone through the front of house. At the back of house is our changing areas, our tech rooms, our storage. For anyone designing spaces, storage is key. They say around 20% of sim centres should be storage if you're having that hyper-flexible design, and I can guarantee you'll need it. Then, as they come through to the front of house, they go into their simulation suite. And a simulation suite is a combination of a pre- or debrief room or classroom, a sim room, and a control room. And I'll show you this in a minute, so don't worry if you're struggling with the schematic a little bit. There's 2 in each zone, and the offices we converted into either clinic rooms or upstairs inpatient rooms, but you'll see those in a minute, and we'll talk a little bit more about why. Once we'd done the design, we then worked with an architect. And some of the challenges of working with architects is you meet them and say, yay, hello, can you design me a sim centre? And they said, what's that? And that's where your expertise comes back in, because often you have to guide your architects and your estates teams on what a reasonable and functional simulation should look like. Just going back slightly, I wanted to just say, think about your flows. I missed that bit out, apologies. But you've got your learner flows at the front of house, so it keeps the immersion. The facilitators and the techs can also work at the back of house. So when you're trying to swap equipment in and out, they have a path to do that without disturbing the learners. So really think when you're designing your schematics and your CAD drawings about your learner flows. That was something I learnt from Michael Seropian. So you can tell him I'm pinching his stuff. Then we worked with the architects, and again, it wasn't just me working with architects. We had our faculty involved, we had our health boards involved. They were having a look and really buying into the concept. And now it's great because they have a sense of ownership. They feel like they were involved at every stage, and they want to help the centre be successful. So the time and energy it took to do that was definitely worth it. And then we knocked down the walls. And this is when you have a heart attack and think, what have I done? Especially when your hubby picks you up from work and he comes in and he went, Joe, what have you done? God, like, man alive. But this is the fun bit, but the hard work, because this is the project planning phase. You've done all your needs assessment, now you're in the project planning phase. And we work closely with our estates team and our architects and our construction team to keep the project on time and on budget, because that's your biggest challenge if you're expanding facilities. As part of that design, it was really important for us to think about sustainability from an environmental perspective, and Swansea has a huge commitment to the net zero goal. So we actually asked estates for even more funding on top of our SIM funding to help try and achieve that. So some of the questions I get asked by the NHS is, how do we convert old buildings into more new, modern, upscale buildings? And this is part of the things we recommend. Apart from the day-to-day running, such as recycling and all the things we're trying to do, we also changed really old gas boilers with new heat pumps. We had smart LED lighting, so if we forget to turn the lights off, they switch off anyway. They're not on unless we walk down the corridor, etc. We changed all the windows and had double glazing, and just these different varying environmental design sort of examples. We have capacity monitoring in the room, because this is helping with our data and our efficiency. So even though we have central booking, we want to really monitor room usage, because we have 4 zones of learning, and we can actually do a lot within those 4 zones, because we really thought about flow and capacity and usability of the space. So we want to make sure that it is being used at least to an 80% capacity. And then we also just considered some of the small steps, even just with things like virtual meetings. Somebody in the audience mentioned their use of virtual meetings, and how you think about, do we all need to drive down from these different areas, and what's our footprint? So we've knocked down the walls, and while I'm worrying about what they're doing in the building, we focus our time on getting ready for commissioning of the building. And we prioritise people. We started to run faculty development courses. We have trained over 300 of our team, faculty from the health boards and the university on simulation-based learning methodologies. And that will continue, and we'll always be doing that. That's a project. I'm hoping it will continue until our vision of we've embedded our students so much in the culture of simulation that by the time they qualify, we'll never have to run faculty development again. That's the vision. If we've achieved that, well, hey, we can retire. We also very early started a interprofessional simulation group, and this has also worked wonders because we were a new faculty together. We made sure that our champions, so that change management, our leads, were represented in our monthly forum. We include learners and our community stakeholders. It's been invaluable for when we're thinking about expanding our programs. But really, the simulation development is coming from the teams. How do they need to use the centre? How do they want to use the centre? What are their wonderful ideas? It's such a great place to collaborate. And we've been running that for 18 months, and it's really proven worthy. And as I mentioned before, even with this larger planning, we also think about some of the context that we need, the local context. I mentioned our Welsh strategy, but also we want to make sure that we can connect our sites. And that's why our wonderful technology helps with that. So we have immersive walls. So we're doing a little bit of research on connecting teams through the walls, because in our remote site, it's mainly nursing training, undergraduate and postgraduate. Yet our H&IW strategy actually talks very much about interprofessional education. But how do you do that without getting buses for an hour and a half to a main sim centre? So we've started to video interprofessional team members to embed into the walls so that they can have sort of like a hybrid interprofessional communication scenarios, just as one idea. Now, I'll shut up for a little bit. I don't really shut up though because I'm talking in here, so apologies. But we've built our spaces. We've designed and built our spaces. We're building up our teams. We're thinking about we're building our curriculum, and then you have to commission the space. You have to get it all set up, and then you have to open it. So we opened in September. In mid-September this year, so we're brand new, we just opened. And I'd like to take you on a little virtual tour of the spaces, so bear with us. Now, first of all, I'm just going to do a bit of, I don't know, set the expectations, or pre-brief, I'll call it. Firstly, I'm no Jane MacDonald, and I have to apologise because I had to buy a selfie stick, which is mortifying, I'll never use it again, to do this filming. But also I have to apologise to our lovely marketing team because 2 weeks before, they filmed this beautiful walkthrough. It's the most amazing thing. This is all our students, our learners, but he wasn't ready. So you've got me with the selfie stick, so I do apologise. It's just awful. The other thing is I want you to remain situationally aware because you might see some reference to the title of the presentation, Back to the Future. So please forgive us for our sense of humour. This is for you, Ronnie, in the back. His favourite film. So this is the reception and an explanation of the zones. Here's our reception area of our Simulation and Immersive Learning Centre. Thank you. Oh, God. The centre's designed, it's a complete building with 2 floors. We have 4 zones of learning. Downstairs is zone 1 and zone 2. We have a front of house, back of house design. So all the learners would come at the front of house and our main operations is at the back of house. So it's a bit like a theatre. So we help keep the immersion, but we also have lovely changing facilities and locker spaces for our learners. Let's have a wander down one of our zones, just so you can see an example of how we've designed them. Each zone has 2 simulation suites and also a series of side rooms. So on the ground floor, we have a number of clinic rooms, and we also have 2 simulation suites. Upstairs, we have inpatient rooms. So let me just show you an example of one of those rooms. This is our basic clinic room. Disbelief and all that. As you can see, they're pretty basic, but they're great because they're hyper flexible. We try and design rooms and spaces that are flexible so they can be used for a variety of things. But we've also got CAE learning space on all of the ceilings, and each of the rooms can be viewed from our control rooms, or indeed any other spaces. So we're hyper connected in the centre. Let me just take you down the corridor so you can see one of our simulation suites. I'm going to take you into our Zone 2, Sim Suite 4. HR were involved, by the way. Each of the simulation suites comprises of a pre- and debrief room, or a classroom space, again, because they're hyper flexible, and an immersive simulation suite and control room. So as you can see here, this space is actually quite large. This holds capacity for around 50 people, but on average, around 30 students would come at a time. Most of our other sim suites, we maybe have around 20 learners at a time, so that they can be involved in at least one simulation and observe a further 2 in a morning or afternoon. And all of the simulations can be streamed live into the classroom or pre-brief debrief room via our screens, our smart screens. So let me just take you into one of our immersive suites. So the learners would come through, and here is one of our immersive learning suites with the touch technology. And as faculty, we would actually go to the back of house, but we have access to our control room. So this is Kellyanne, one of our techs, our simulation techs, who helps to run the simulations. And as you can see, we have the capability for simulation technologies for faculty to sit together with a one-way mirror, and then we have our immersive suites that can be used for simulation, different fidelities of simulation, but also for the immersive training and gamification. Okay, so that's an example of one of our suites. We have 8 within the centre, so I'll just show you a few more examples. Yeah. Kellyanne said to say she's very friendly, but she was trying to be professional. That's why she didn't wave. This is more of an example of how we use it for clinical training, so one of our clinical training examples. This is still in Zone 2. One of our clinical sim suites. I don't know why I didn't open the doors before I started filming, so apologies. So this is an example of another pre-debrief room. The learners would be welcomed. We follow simulation standards that we talk about a little bit in the presentation. So each of the learners would have a pre-brief, a familiarisation. They would either be in or observe a scenario and then be involved in a debrief. As we mentioned, the learners go through the double doors, and then as faculty we can actually slip through these back door here and to the back of house and go into our corridor, into our control room. It's one of our control rooms. We have Stu working here as our simulation technologist, and he is using CAE learning space and the Maestro software, as well as Immersive UK, Echo Health's immersive suites, to to run the simulations. We've been doing some piloting this morning with some of our ICU team members. I'll just take you into one of our clinical suites. So the beauty of the immersive spaces is obviously we can change and replicate different environments. We've done a lot of filming locally here in Wales. So this is one of our actual, oh hello, sorry to bother you, we just do a little bit of filming. I nearly died when he did that actually. Actual ICUs in Marsden Hospital. We use a variety, a bit of a hybrid approach. So we've got the immersive walls, we've got our simulation technology, a range of mannequins. We also use standardised patients, actors, and we have a range of medical equipment. And due to the flex design, we can pull the equipment in and out of the spaces using that back of house approach to make sure that we can do lots of variety of interprofessional training to meet the needs of our undergraduate, postgraduate and community partnerships. Actually, filming locally was really important to us, so the students feel highly immersed, and it also helps them prepare for their clinical practice placements. It's great also if you're considering for replication of practice placements, which we're being asked for more and more with the increased numbers, but also the pressures. I don't know, are you having a lot of pressures finding clinical placements? Yeah, there's so many new students, but where do they go to do their actual 50% of clinical? The operating theatres called us recently to say 7 students had turned up for one theatre for one of the shifts. Where do you start with that? So the need is great for this type of space. In each of the simulation zones, we have a variety of side rooms. These side rooms replicate clinics and inpatient rooms and are used for small group work, additional simulations and our OSCE examinations. All of these rooms are linked by our CAE learning space, including the corridors, which is great when we are doing patient journey, transfers and systems testing with our undergraduate students and also our health board partners. We have a variety of equipment that can populate these side rooms. And we use our equipment, our simulation technology specialists and our expert faculty and clinical teams to run our simulations and examinations. I think it's important to think about the systems testing piece, because even though we know that for in situ simulations, there's a great need to think about system improvement, human factors, team performance, all those things that we know and love in simulation, but it's often currently hard to replicate. How many people are having issues doing in situ sim just because of the sheer busyness of your units and centres? Yeah. We are too. They're getting cancelled constantly, and this is why we're keen to work with our health boards, because we can replicate their working environments and do some of the things where we know there's critical incident issues, and handover actually is the highest, isn't it? It's number 1. For incidences where we can reduce preventable harm, which is the point. And so even just doing those simple transfers where we're video recording them down the corridor, what are they talking about? How are they communicating? Are they doing their SBARs? It doesn't have to be a crash bang wallop. It can be simple learning objectives, but have high impact when they then transfer that learning into clinical practice. So that's part of the reason we wanted to make sure we could capture every angle of our centre and space. I'm now taking you upstairs. You've had a little, so there was the 4 zones, so zone 1, zone 2. When we think about the learner flows and our faculty and technical flows, even though the rooms, we have 6 HyperFlex simulation suites, so we can do any type of simulation in there. We have 2 bespoke, which I'll show you. We have an operating theatre and a flat environment. Again, they're still flexible. They can still be turned into other environments, but we needed those for our programme. So it was very specific for our programmes and what we needed to achieve. But from an operating model perspective, so for the simulation technologists in the room, we have our Zone 1 mainly as paediatrics and early adults. Zone 2, because it has that bigger classroom, we do more adult learning because we have a high cohort of nursing students. Zone 3 is more of our inpatient, critical care and OR. And Zone 4, we do a lot more of the obstetrics, midwifery, pre-hospital. We work with social workers and our community teams. So that's sort of how operationally we think about our zones, because we've got those tech rooms at the back of house. So we have certain bits of equipment that we can pull in and out to maintain that high level of operations. So I'll just show you Zone 3. On our first floor, we've got nice breakout spaces. Zone 3. Zone 3 is more of our hospital care areas. Although all the zones can be flexed for operations, it's easier to have certain equipment and certain setups in certain places. So we have, as you can see, a variety of equipment and our rooms replicating inpatient hospitals. Again, it's all connected with our 360 cameras. Sorry, it looks like Rod Stewart, that one. We call him Rod. 2 simulation suites. So we have a generic sim suite as our sim suite 6. And of a more bespoke sim suite at the end of the corridor. So we can transfer our patients. Sorry, they're quite long corridors, as you can tell. It takes a while. And we come to our theatre area. So we have an anaesthetic room and a scrub area. We've replicated NHS hospital designs for our learners. And we've just recently started an operating departmental practitioner programme. So they are really utilising and enjoying this space. As you can see, we've got a fully kitted out immersive theatre. We have a combination of real medical equipment and also simulated equipment. Again, within the ceiling, the projectors are hidden out of sight of the learners. And we filmed in local hospitals to ensure we have a variety of realistic spaces for our learners to practice in. This is particularly helpful when we're doing unidisciplinary training, although we do encourage interprofessional, and we've had a wide variety of simulation scenarios, even though we've only been open a couple of months. Paramedics and the midwives, the gen students, occasional departmental practitioners and nurses have all been working within this space. Again, we have smell boxes, so we can pump in the various smells to heighten realism. And the teams are currently working on different simulation scenarios to embed into the immersive spaces. So, I don't know if you heard on that, you could hear that clearly, but we do have the smell boxes. So from the control room, you can pump in the different smells. Emily mentioned this yesterday. And this is just all to help create that immersion. So they have audio, they have varying temperatures, they have the different smells. Even if they're doing training independently, they have the awareness that interprofessional teams will be in that space and also create those distractors that they don't get in a classroom environment, do they? So they get that culture shock when they go into clinical practice and suddenly there's all these other things to think about. We're nearly there. So I just want to show you an example of the different control rooms. There's different philosophies around control rooms. Some are attached to your sim suites with the one-way mirror glass, and that's something you may want to consider. Many control rooms now are becoming remote. We actually did a bit of a survey within our organisation, and I asked some of my colleagues what they thought the best way was. And like everything, there's no really right or wrong. It's just what your preference is for your organisation. We did a combination of both because that's what suited our faculty and our design. So 6 of the immersive suites, those standardised ones you've seen, have a actual control room attached. It helps with the flow. But our theatre and our house, our bespoke, we wanted to keep them slightly larger, so we didn't want to waste the space. We moved the control room just opposite. So I'll show you an example of a remote control room. So as we leave our theatre, sorry, poorly, we actually have a remote control room. Where faculty and the technologies can work together to run the simulation scenarios. I didn't think we had any faculty in today. This helps, especially when we're running OSCEs. So we run all the OSCEs around those side rooms for the GMC and the NMC OSCEs and our allied health professionals. And we're really finding this useful because faculty are gradually starting to leave the room. And I think that's always a great thing about having these designs where you don't have to actually be in the room. It helps to increase the immersion of your simulations. I wanted to just show you a little bit about some of the detailed design of the Sim Suite. Is anyone thinking of having or building immersive rooms within their facilities? Hopefully this may help a little bit then for those team members doing that. Just going to provide you a little bit of a separate tour about the design of the immersive suites. As you can see from this immersive suite, we have floor-to-ceiling immersion. We have upgraded our projectors so that they are actually hidden within the ceiling. We use more powerful Epson projectors to make sure that the quality of the images was increased. So within the ceiling, there are sensors, the projectors, CA learning space, our microphones, our boundary mics. Yet really, considering the amount of equipment that's hidden, it's not a distractor for our learners. Our immersive suites also have smell boxes as we try and replicate with our health board colleagues, our students and other industries various real-world experiences. You can design your curriculums in multiple ways. This is one of our favourites with our learning disability groups and communities. You can embed videos, you can embed question banks, you can include gamification, you can include different senses like the bubbles on the walls in this example. You can have different audios, and you can also have a swim with the whales. Our centre is doing a variety of research projects on the value of immersive learning, and we're also looking at different forms of hybrid education, the use of immersive walls, the use of virtual or mixed reality, to enhance the opportunities for our variety of learners within these spaces. We also have a project at the moment where we're looking at student and staff well-being with various technologies, including immersive spaces and virtual reality. This is definitely one of our favourites. You can see the little touch screen pluses there. Actually, those you can hide. This is for children. So we work on community projects with children with the learning disability group, and they love this one. In fact, you have to be careful though, because the last time they were here for 4 hours, couldn't get them out. So be careful what you wish for. I went for lunch and came back because they were just loving it. It was a thrill to see, but it's, yeah. But these, you can hide them. And if you think about, especially for our university programs, medical equipment is so hard to sustain and procure. So I just think about some of the midwifery scenarios we do where we need resuscitaires, neonatal resuscitaires, yet they're £25,000 each. And within our health boards, we have 3 different models. So what we've done is filmed some of that equipment, and we now do a hybrid. So they can still switch on the warmer, the oxygen, on the immersive space, but they can still do a neonatal resuscitation in a mixed and blended way. We also then can do principles of neonatal resuscitation and setting up your equipment, anticipating and planning, but they can press a hotspot, they're called, and they can also say, okay, that's how you do it on GE. Now let's have a look how we do it in Morriston on Philips. So it's really good for adding those different elements of perhaps differences they will see in the health boards. We're nearly there. Sorry, it's a big centre. So I'll just show you 2 more examples and then we'll wrap up. So this is our Zone 4. Zone 4, again, has another flexible zone and our home environment, so I just wanted to show you 2 more examples. Just take you into another one of our simulation suites. We use the sim suites for a variety of educational modalities. Simulation clinical training, gamification, virtual and augmented reality. It's amazing how sort of this gamification is with our learners is becoming more and more popular. So the GEMS programme at the moment have designed this absolutely amazing education activity. It's called, let's say it's called Gem Maze, not Crystal Maze. But they've designed all the different zones with immersive, so, future zones and Amazon zones. And I didn't watch Crystal Maze, so I've been having a real insight into what that show's about. But they have medical questions, and they can get gems, and they've really sort of made that interactive learning environments and brought a bit of joy to the, and creativity to what they're doing with their first and second year learners, and the response is really great. Last but not least, we obviously know that a lot of our care is not done in hospital environments, but also in our community. So we actually had started running an occupational therapy course. We run social work, obviously community nursing, GEM, all the interprofessional groups that would use home environments. So we created an immersive learning flat. But again, because all our furniture is flip and lightweight and can be moved in and out, it can be used for a variety of different things. So you could we're running the prompt course, so we can change the environment to 4 maternity rooms if we wanted to. The kitchen's a workable space. The units go up and down, so we can do lots of work with adaptive learning, etc. So we just worked with the OT on their specific design. And then for all our technologists in the room, we know that space and operations is key. So I'll just show you one very quick example of one of our tech rooms.
Front of house, back of house design. As we know, for any sim program or centres, storage is key. Here's one of our tech rooms. We have a tech room on each floor. We also have storage in each zone. It really helps with flexibility of our operations. As we walk in, you can see a large working bench and a deep sink. This helps with our maintenance and cleaning of all our mannequins and equipment. We have storage for our moulage, our simulated drugs, and all our small pieces of equipment. And we also have storage solutions for our mannequins. We have one of the racks at the back, which the techs fondly call the morgue rack. And then we have our trolleys that actually are great for mannequin moving around the centre because they go vertically, so you can get them around tight corners. This really helps with moving and also safe handling of this equipment that can often be really heavy. We've only been open a couple of weeks, so it's a work in progress. We use CAE inventory to keep a stock of what we've ordered and all our consumables and our equipment. It's so important when you're running an operational centre.
So thinking about some of these key operational points is really important because you do have to think about not only your operations manual, but safe manual handling, the safety of your teams, maybe doubling up. These are gurneys, so maybe you can double up and save money that way. But if you want flex space, you have to design the storage to have that flex space and move equipment in and out. Okay, so just the last couple of slides because I'm very conscious of the time, and then we'll open to any questions. Part of our themes and our strategy was also around our research. We've got many research projects that we've started across our faculty to do with simulation-based learning. Some core research from our simulation team is around virtual reality, so mixed reality and virtual reality is also something that we want to explore a little bit more. We started off by winning a project in Wales where we had £400,000 worth of funding. So I worked with a Welsh company to build a VR platform. What we really wanted to do with this was move away from single learner experiences to the importance of single learner experiences when you think about your curriculum. A little bit of pre-learning with our 360 skill station sessions, individual learning in VR. But actually, I was very keen to work more with a multiplayer so that we could replicate what we do in simulation. So we have a platform now where you come in, you would have a pre-brief, you have a sandbox, which is the familiarization, so we can make sure that we're measuring the learning and not your ability to do VR. You can then come into a scenario as a team, and that can either be within one of our classroom spaces or wherever you are. So we ran one recently with a consultant in Morriston, somebody in Swansea Bay, and us in the Sim Centre. And they came into the virtual zone, and I even got them to create a little debrief room, so you can debrief virtually, with a TV in the background so you can do playback. We can't figure out how to work that yet, so we'll figure it out. But so following on from that project, what we thought about was, again, curricular design. So the learners would go, and this is tracheostomy, and it was meeting a competency requirement need following COVID. So the learners would go into a single learner zone and watch a 360 video, be immersed in a 360 video and answer questions. You can select the answers with your eyes. It's all eye tracking. There's also a session where we convert the VR so you're the patient, so you can get that sense of empathy. What does it feel like? to have people coming at you when you have that tracheostomy in. It's very powerful for some of our learners that are just new to providing care to patients with tracheostomies. Then you move down to your single learners, which is more of your skill station, and then your multiplayer. And from that, we've received further funding from the Higher Education Council, another nearly £1 million worth of funding, and we've expanded that library now to include another 7 modules. So we're just about to finish that build. We did a needs assessment on what we felt was sort of the most valuable current gaps in curriculum that may be enhanced with VR. So we did that across health boards, and I've partnered with a university health board, so we'll be collecting data from undergraduate and postgraduate learners. So anyone that's interested in doing any trials with VR, please get in touch. We're always keen for multi-centred trial collaborations. But I suppose the principle is think about research, think about collecting your data as you build your programs. And then for any groups that are building facilities or want to expand, then absolutely, we've talked a little bit about this, but consider your business and sustainability strategy. For us, it was very much about looking at our internal learners, our health board partners, but also other industries. So we've already been approached by people like the Sports Council, construction, law is a big one because they're struggling to get into the courtrooms. So we've done some virtual filming of courtrooms. There's many opportunities if you do build these centres to think about how else they can be utilised. But within your vision and mission and planning, you have to think about your operating model. Are you a 5-day-a-week centre? Are you a 7-day-a-week centre? Have you asked for the right staffing, the right budgets? That is why that early development is so important. So lessons learned. There's several examples of lessons learned there, and we've discussed many of them. But I think the key for me is really collect your data and be a data-driven organisation which supports the impact of what you're doing. Stop and celebrate the key milestones, because we don't do that very often. You have huge successes in simulations. Even running smaller programs, you're doing wonderful work, and you need to stop and celebrate that, but also produce your reports to share that with others, because you often find there's a lot of commonality, and it may be that you can collaborate more and work together. And be brave. Keep the faith. Build it, they will come. That's what I say when I knock down the walls. Hope for the best. Last but not least, it takes a whole vision. It takes a team. So I just wanted to thank everyone that was involved in the project, because it isn't just about one person. It's about a whole team of internal, external partners and industry partners. And we have some amazing people on this project. So definitely not a solo gig by any means. And we're definitely out of time. I think we're way over time. So I just wanted to end with a blooper and then some questions.
Thank you for touring our Simulation and Immersive Learning Centre. sorry.
Oh, thank you. You've talked so much. Yeah.
I'm looking at the timekeepers. Is it okay if we have 5 minutes of questions or 3 minutes? Yeah? Okay. So, first of all, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I got 2 microphones I'm supposed to use for questions, so I'm not sure. Are there any?
There's one at the back. Right?
Hello, thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Been in a similar situation where we've repurposed the building and
Okay.
converted it into Sim Centre. So my question is, how much did it all cost?
I knew that was coming. Well, the 2 projects in totality, The capital, so the building cost and the non-capital cost, was 6.499,665, if you want the exact cost. Not that I keep an eye on the budget. But some of that was investment in the estates. So the estates team added 1.1 million so we could do the sustainability. We also had to think about some of the capital costs for St Davies Park because it's a listed building. So there's some different design things we had to think about. But the other thing to consider as well, when you're doing a refurb, it's a lot cheaper than when you're doing a new build. So the new build would have been 3 times that amount, plus the time it takes to do, so you lose that teaching. But if you want to speak about sort of calculation of budgets, I'm happy to speak to you, because I think if you can get your budget sort of right with a contingency, a decent contingency, you tend to come in on time and on budget. Touch wood. Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you for a really interesting talk. Loved the Back to the Future and also the cheeky Wayne's World reference at the end. It's clearly a fantastic centre, but I'm interested, what are the gaps between work as imagined or simulation centre as imagined and simulation centre as done?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in many ways it's slightly exceeded my expectations with the immersive rooms, but I've built simulation centres before, so it comes back to that expertise. You know sort of how much roughly time it'll take, the cost, the expectation. For me, we did a lot of work to get the immersive rooms right. So as you could see, we didn't have sort of the gaps and it was floor to ceiling. I was really keen to hide the projectors. I don't like it when you can see the projectors and it's a distractor. We even did the details of making the ceiling colour coordinated with the environment. So it's some of these little key things just to think about your learners and what might distract them. So I think really it's not really about my expectations, it's about what people think and the learners. And so far, we've only been open for 9 weeks, but we have had such a positive response. The most important thing, it's been used. Because I think that's the risk, isn't it? If you don't do all that work up front, you don't get the buy-in. People were waiting for it to open. I don't have to go out and do a sales pitch. I don't have to do that. People are, and even working with the health board, so part of our faculty development programme, we actually had contracts with the health boards. So now the clinical educators are coming in and wanting to use that space, and we're extending it out. I think the key goal for me is that you never should run your facility at 100%, it's impossible. It's hard to do that because you have that turnover, that takedown, that prep time. Make sure you include that in your operating models, that we actually in our systems, our CellCats, we book out that time. So we run it at about an 80% capacity. Because of the hyperflex, if it's not being used for sim, it will be used for other things. So we're even starting to do things like interviews in there with the key aim of attracting the best and the brightest students. Like we can do other things in there, but the key for me is it's got to be used. And we'll use it with multiple people that want to use it. Yeah, thank you for your question.
Thank you very much. I just learned that we need to stop.
Yes, I'm sure. Sorry.
But I want to encourage you to discuss more. I think this fantastic presentation deserves more conversations around that. It was quite fascinating to hear that. I need to do 3 things, and I do this. I promise to do this very quickly. So there's this lovely bottle of
Thank
bubbly
you so much.
things.
That's very sweet.
I keep these here, right?
Oh, thank you.
Yes. For additional happiness, there's chocolate.
Even better.
The last piece, the Dolls engineer, Willibald Moors, who wrote our models of physiology, his autobiography. I still think it's fascinating to read. And some of there's technical things he's talking about, but a lot of other things, and some of them I'm pretty sure you will recognize.
Thank you so much. That's really sweet. Thank you very much. And thank you again. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Another fantastic keynote. So thank you to Joe and all the presenters over the last 2 days and the people that are still to present. I'm going to literally take 2 minutes of your time because I appreciate people probably need a coffee or some sort of pick-me-up by now, because I do. So firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to do the last prize of the day. So if you've still got your tickets, the prize is actually going to be £105 to celebrate 105 years of Adam Rooley. So if you wouldn't mind coming forwards, and then hopefully, this could take forever, couldn't it, with these numbers? But let's go. 61 in the room. Let's keep them going. 114. Oh. Do we believe that? Come on, Emily. It's right. We believe you. You have to give it back if not. Joe, can you do a picture? Yeah, come up if you can. Just take a picture. You haven't even got a car, have you? Thank you. Can have a quick picture with Joe, that's all right. Okay, and then the final quick points from me. Firstly, a couple of thank yous. So thank you to the Trent and the rest of the AV team over there who have been able to put this out on YouTube, set everything up for us. It's great that we don't have to worry too much and they look after everything. So thank you for having it all working over the 2 days. Thank you to the rest of the team at CAE. Again, too many people to mention, but particular mentions Jamie Stewart. We literally cannot put this program together without him. It doesn't really fall under his job category either, so he does this alongside his day-to-day work. So really appreciate everything Jamie does, Tom, Tony, and Joe, the technicians, for getting all the equipment ready, doing all the testing and making everything work. Wolfgang as well, who helps does the program. He does all the bookings around the hotels, the food, the catering, and crossing every T and dotting every I, and putting on the evening events. So thank you to them. And then lastly, thank you to everyone else for coming along. We really appreciate you coming out. This is the biggest turnout we've ever had. Excuse me. And hopefully we'll continue to grow. And then my final point is you've probably got an evaluation form somewhere in your bags. If you can fill them out, and if you don't want to fill them out, if you want to just send us an email with your thoughts, your feedback, the good, the bad, the indifferent, because we do take it on board. And a lot of what we have done this year in terms of more interactive sessions, more hands-on sessions, even in what we do in the evenings, the entertainment and stuff, a lot of this comes back from the feedback you give us, the conversations we have, St George's team, over a few drinks. Thank you very much, for sharing your ideas about what people would like to do in the evenings. Every year we get more and more people come in, more and more people stay around in the evenings, so thank you. Please continue to share your ideas. But thank you very much. Go and get a coffee and have a safe journey home later.